you know, and never was turned away from any place or anything. I just had a need or a feeling that we were missing something. I would go in other neighborhoods and I would ask myself, how can they live like this? And I would go back to our neighborhood and see the houses falling down, abandoned cars. You would go out into West Side Park and you would see this beautiful park. You go to Douglas Center and you see this dilapidated building, no play apparatus. And you would say to yourself, what's going on here? What is the major difference? I used to sit up on the railroad tracks and watch people in cars. And I would notice that whenever I saw white people driving, they were always going somewhere. And whenever I would notice black people, they always appeared like they never had any place to go. And I tried to understand, what is the difference here? How are we being reared? How are we being socialized that we don't have any aspirations for a future? Why are our roads unpaved? Why don't we have sidewalks? Why, when it rains, water stands in our neighborhoods and nowhere else? I think it was asking myself those kinds of questions. Why, when you go out to the University of Illinois, there are thousands of kids that you can count the blacks. No black administrators, no black instructors. Sounds to me like
you didn't just have two courses in civics that duplicate each other. It sounds to me like you gave yourself a course.
Well, our civics courses that are taught in this country is nothing by which a kid can learn to get involved in his government. They're a joke. And in fact, we need to do something about that. I used to make these comparisons. I used to go into a meeting, and there were all of these nice middle-class white citizens, and I would sit back, and they would stand up and ask questions, and they didn't know anything.
And you knew the answers.
They didn't know anything. And you would go back to your neighborhood, and you would say to an old lady, hey, why don't you go to that meeting? And she would say, son, why? I don't understand what's going on. I'd say, well, lady, nobody understands what's going on. So you'll be on even ground. No one understands, so.
No, I think that's the most hidden secret in America.
Yes.
Is that we all think that there are experts out there who know so much
yes.
more about a subject than we do that a lot of us fail to get involved.
Yes.
And opportunities we have to contribute what we know just from observing our lives on our street never get used.
Never get used.
Well, I think this is absolutely fascinating, and what we ought to do at this point in this program is leave the studio and go on a tour with you of some of the very neighborhoods in which you grew up, which now are being worked on by the city of Champaign, and I guess you're now let's get official here. This man that I've been talking to, everybody, has been around, and he's been a politician as he sees it, and I think as I see it, and probably the kind of politician that America could use a little more of. And in your career since you got out of high school, which must be, what, about 1958 or so?
A little over 20 years.
A little over 20 years. You've been a city council member for 2 terms.
Yes.
You have headed up innumerable committees, some of which you created, but some of
yes.
which you didn't. And at the moment, I guess you're chairman of the city of Champaign's Better Housing Committee.
Only at the moment.
Only at the moment. Okay.
Yes.
As of the time that we are doing this taping,
I'm still chairman.
You're still chairman. We'll maybe come back to that. But I think what we should do now is leave the studio and go on a tour with you, John Lee Johnson, of certain parts of Champaign to which a certain number of our viewers probably haven't been.
True.
So we'll just do that.
We're standing here at 201 East Columbia. This is where I was born. Myself along with 15 other brothers and sisters. I lived here with them, my mother and father and her mother and her husband. I think I stayed here until I was, what, 16 or 17 before we moved to Urbana. It's strange, every time trains would come through, the old house would rumble.
We are just about, what, 50 feet from the tracks at most?
From the old New York Central Railroad tracks. And we used to get that east-west passenger line coming through and all kinds of freights. And then during the Korean War, there was always trains, carrying military equipment and whatever. So now, I want to say I had a lot of fun here. And I didn't realize how cramped I was until I became an adult. But I had fond memories from this home.
This isn't a very big house. The foundation, as you pointed out, isn't very large.
It was only a 2-bedroom. So most of us slept on the floor. With an old coal stove in the living room and a wooden stove in the kitchen from which my mother cooked. But they worked very hard to keep us happy, and we never knew we were poor. And you're looking east on Columbia Street, which used to be the hub of the black business district in the 50s. Most of this area is cleared out, and we'll see it when we walk across this retention pond here.
So, John Lee, where are we?
We're now in the Oak Area Retention Pond. This is the old Oak Street area. There were about 36 structures, single-family structures that were here that the city acquired over a 3-year period. And Ash Street is there, hence the name Oak Ash area.
So your house is back over yonder. We came from down there at the end of this road here, which is an access road that the city built when they put this retention area in.
Yes, this is a maintenance road.
Okay.
This is basically the area that I grew up and I played in. Yeah.
But now it's been recontoured. We've been looking down here into a pond area, but it wasn't that low before, right? So, and this then is raised and elevated. So what's the concept here?
Well, the concept is that the water, there's an inlet there, the water comes in, and
this
the water...
is the Boneyard Creek we're looking at.
The water is able to be retained and gradually move out there. The engineering concept is to reduce the floodage in the down part of the stream, which is basically Campus Town and the area beyond Campus Town.
So all the water that comes into the boneyard from further upstream stays here after the storm and goes out slowly.
Goes out very slowly.
Instead of racing through the middle of Champaign. So this benefits then all the people of Champaign who are downstream on the boneyard.
It was due to that benefit that this area was cleared.
I see.
To convince certain council members that in order to acquire Oak Ash area, there had to be a benefit to the people of Champaign. This retention pond is that benefit.
And then you hope to get out of it some low-income housing to replace the single-family dwellings that were removed.
Yes.
And the housing was going to go...
on the other side of this high contour area. Okay. Now that's been a criticism of me by certain citizens, and that is that the area was acquired, the retention pond is here, but the city has not lived up to the other part of the deal, which is to replace the housing. And of course the city did submit an urban development action proposal, which was denied, and the only fallback position that the city has is the use of urban renewal dollars. I'm not quite sure how successful that fallback position is going to be with the continued use of those funds.
Yes.
But this
so we
is
have
the
half
area.
the project, and this is the part that benefits everybody downstream, but we don't have the part that benefited the people who were moved.
Yes.
Now, some of those houses, though, were saved. Is that right?
There were only a couple of them saved. Most of the people who lived here acquired replacement housing. Okay. And as we walk along, I'll show you that replacement housing.
Well, as a matter of fact, from here, we might as well just put this in perspective. We started out at your old house over 201 Columbia. That's back there, what would you say, 200 yards maybe? Something like that?
About 2.5.
Okay, and then up here in the distance is the...
Is Bradley Park Mount Olive Manors complex. We're looking right now at Bradley Park, which is a housing complex which was designed by the Community Advocacy Depot.
Which you founded, as I recall.
And I happen to have founded the group that sponsored and constructed those units. And there has been some criticism of that housing project. You know, it seems that most of the things I've done have had some degree of criticism. But I think the issue was legitimate. We needed housing. There was no housing forthcoming. The opportunity was there, and you have to look at what the problems are and the solutions which are available. The only solution that was available to us at that time was to construct Bradley Park apartments.
And the criticism has to do with the fact that they're multiple family dwellings rather than single?
Multiple family dwellings, the location of those dwellings to Birch Village, which is the public housing project, and Mount Olive Manors. We'll be able to get a better shot for the audience to see when we get there. But that was some of the criticism.
Just for our audience enlightenment, what is the difference in your mind between public housing as opposed to these apartments? What's the difference in financing and sponsorship and so forth?
Well, in my opinion, all housing built in America are built by some public means. The difference is that this was an FHA 236 project, Mount Olive Manors is an FHA 221 project, and public housing is built by the Housing Administration Division of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So even though it's a semi-privately mortgage-owned project, the one that we sponsored, and so is Mount Olive Manors. But they're built under different mortgage programs, which has something to do with the rent schedules and the terms of the mortgage to the sponsors. Those are the basic difference. This is the old Ash Street, and you're beginning to see some of the problems of individuals coming over and dumping.
How long now has this project been semi-complete? We've been waiting for this housing how long?
It's been semi-complete roughly a year and some months.
Okay.
And this dumping is becoming a growing problem, and it's a problem that I pointed out to the City Council, and I think it's a problem which all people in Champaign should be concerned about, and hopefully this council will move quickly to complete the redevelopment of this area, or at least protect the area from this kind of dumping.
The spot that we're standing on shows pretty clearly what the contouring did, because that's quite a substantial build-up there. Okay, so the pond on the other side, this is the retaining wall.
And the residential structures are to go on this side.
And I see they did